Hi everyone, I'm Jasprit Singh. I'm Microsoft Identity and Security Engineer. Today I want to talk about how session cookies bypass MFA entirely. Most of the people in companies think that once their account is protected with MFA, their account is protected. Once their MFA is satisfied, their account is protected 100%. This is not 100% true. So let's talk about how session cookies bypass MFA entirely in detail. So what a session cookie really is. I don't want to give a definition. Let's like try to understand with an example. Let's say this is me trying to log in. This is me and trying to log in. This is user, right? This is trying to log into his computer. This is a browser. Let's say Mozilla, and their company uses M365. He uses Outlook, Teams, and SharePoint. So when he tries to log in to his M365 account, this is Microsoft Cloud, and this is Entra ID. This is identity provider. ID provider. When I enter my username and password, right? MFA enter the username and password. It goes here. It checks the setting. It checks the conditional access policy, which is username and password is correct. Now I will be prompted for MFA. I'll request MFA. MFA prompt done. So I complete the MFA. MFA is done. So I confirm it. I go back to the identity provider and it gives me a session key. A session is being granted, has been given by identity provider to the user's computer. Just given identity provider, right? In this session, you get three things. First, who you are. Let's say it tells that you are being given your active session, which means you don't need to enter the you don't do not require password. No MFA will be prompted. No MFA will be prompted. This means you are being given a badge with a certificate attached to it to enter into this building, which means you can log into this building without requiring MFA, no password. Okay, active session is given. So I can go to this building and come out this building anytime whenever I want. This depends on the session lifetime as well. And he can enter into the building and he can do whatever he wants to do it. That's a session cookie. That's what session is. So you are being given an access with a section is like, I would say a particular session is being created for you to log into the browser, to let the user log into the identity provider and use the same browser, use the same session to log into other sessions, other profiles as well. For instance, once you log into the M365 portal, you can log into the Outlook, you can log into the Teams, you can log into the SharePoint as well without requiring, because same one session log into three services. That's a session, which means a session is being given to log into your company, to your identity provider, to your services with same identity. No MFA will be no required. So why MFA doesn't stop cookie theft? It's a good question. Most people don't understand why MFA does not stop cookie theft. They don't understand the actual reason behind it. MFA is a login event. It's a login event, which means when you log into a new device, when you log in, try to log in, you will be prompted for MFA. MFA is required. So no MFA when you, however, when an active session is there, when let's say this is your active session and that their lifetime is 8 hours. So in 8 hours, no MFA will be required. No MFA will be required because act session is active and no one is trying to log in. However, same user tries to log in with a different browser, with a different browser. Let's say this time is Mozilla, right? Now this time who wants to use Chrome, Google Chrome. He will be prompted when he will be like try to log in. He will be prompted for username and password along with MFA as well. He will have to satisfy those both conditions in order to log in. Once he logs in, he will be given a token in a session as well to let the user log in on the Chrome as well. So a new session is generated which he can use for a different browser. So identity provider generates a different session for a Chrome, different session for Mozilla. Therefore, MFA cannot stop session cookies from being stolen. No, it cannot. Since MFA is not come into the picture because it's already the user has already satisfied the MFA, no MFA will be prompted, and everything happens after MFA satisfied. So how attackers steal session cookies? Let's try to understand with an example. Let's say this is me, or this is one of the user trying to log in. This is his computer. Okay, so there are two methods. Let's try to understand first. AITM, adversary in the middle phishing. This is one of the common methods attackers use to capture the active sessions from the user. So what they do is, this is one of the users, let's say, trying to log into his computer. So they do is they send in a phishing email. Okay. Once the phishing email is done, you will be prompted login page, proxies, MFA, login page, so that user can log, user can MFA, user can enter the username and password. Try to MFA satisfies user. Once user satisfies the MFA, a cyber criminal will capture the active session in real time. That is what they want. That is what the attackers after is. They are not after this MFA and all those. This is what they are after. Once the active session is generated, they steal this active session, they copy and move it to their computer, and they try to use it for, they can use it for certain other actions as well. Let's say download data from SharePoint, setting up inbox rules to forward those emails to their personally cyber criminals personal account so that they can track, they can get the same copy. Confidential emails can be forwarded to anywhere. And another method is malware or info stealer. Let's say you try to open a website, you are being asked to log into one website. Once you log into that website, it once you open a website, it downloads a malware to your computer. Info malwares extracting info. There are malwares extracting say active sessions from the browser, and that sends the same data to cyber criminals. So whenever user will try to log in, an active session is generated. That will be forwarded to the cyber criminal. That's what it is. So there are two methods they do it, and a third one is which is a compromise account, compromise device. Why this bypasses conditional access too, right? Again, same with the MFA, conditional access is also a new login event. It's an event-based policy, which means new login, conditional access will be active. CA policy will be active. No new policy. However, the section is active, CA policy will not evaluate. So this means conditional access cannot do anything unless you try to log in. Again, the same example. If a user tries to log in to, let's say he's from Mozilla, but this time he's trying to log in from Chrome, he can log in. CA policy will come into the picture and do the checks. Let's say location based check, compliance check, these will be forced and checked, and let the user log in if those conditions met. If those conditions do not met, he will be denied. However, session is active, no CA policy. So why users don't notice anything? From users perspective, most people think that, and most of the users think that MFA, they've entered the username and password, MFA is satisfied, so their account is protected. However, that's not true anymore, and cyber criminals work on silently. Session is stolen. Let's say this is a session that's stolen here. They work on silently. They set up inbox rules, download data from SharePoint, sending mass emails, let's say sending spam emails from your mailbox, let's say from your shared mailboxes, right? They try to send emails from a shared mailbox silently. They observe the behavior, how you guys work. They try to learn the patterns, email communication. They observe email communication. Attackers' perspective is once MFA is satisfied, they don't need to do anything, which is not true. Other policy also we need to enable in order to make sure their account is protected and no one can steal user session cookies from their computer device. So how we can actually defend against this? I've tried to list down a couple of policy settings that we can enable. Once you satisfy MFA, the session remains active for 24 hours or 8 hours. So we should make it minimum to 2 hours, right, or 1 hour, as per how aggressive you want to do it. It depends on your company policies as well, because if you're gonna make it 1 hour, users may start getting complained that because every time we have to log in. So this is also we need to consider. Sign-in frequency policies. You can force the users to log in. Let's say if a user is not active for let's say 10 minutes or 5 minutes, he will be logged out from the session and require re-authenticate, re-MFA. Continuous access evaluation. Let's say a user has changed his password, right? So his active session will be revoked. Let's say somebody in a company has disabled the user, right? His active session will be revoked from all browsers. So the user cannot compromise, user cannot take the session. User cannot steal the disabled user or password change session. So you cannot steal the sessions from any browser anymore. Device compliance requirement. This is also one of the factors that I also mentioned. Let's say we must make sure we can set up a compliance policy via Intune. AV should be there, and endpoint protection software should be installed on a virus. BitLocker encryption, firewall should be active, up to date, latest patches. These things we need to make sure. Token protection, where supported. This is also, or you might face some scenarios where it does not support to particular browsers or particular application. But let's talk about where possible we can do that. Tying a token or session to particular device. Let's say you have a corporate device that you have been given. Make sure that token is tied to this particular device. That's it. Risk-based conditional access. Risk-based conditional access is always evaluate device is compliant, location he is trying to log in, browser he is trying to log in, patches up to date. These things match. If these things common, there are other factors that we can also. I mentioned we can also disable legacy authentication. That is also what I mentioned. I forgot to mention here, but this is also one of the factors that we must make sure disabling legacy authentication. Key takeaway. Key takeaway is MFA alone is not enough, which means most people think that after satisfying MFA or MFA after completing the MFA prompt, their account is protected, but that's not true. Companies need to enable other conditional access policy and work on other factors as well that also works similarly parallelly to protect the sessions from being stolen. risk-based conditional access policies, cookies, conditional access policy, disabling legacy authentication, uh, tying session to a particular device. Yeah, other factors which I discussed in the previous slides. Attackers don't bypass MFA and conditional access. Yes, because MFA and conditional access policy is a new law. It's a event-based factors. Our active session needs to protect with other risk-based conditional access policy and other as well. They cannot, if the session is active, they won't come into the picture unless a new session is being requested. Active session needs to protect with other phase as well, because are after session key attackers are after session keys. They don't want your MFA, they don't want your passwords. Traditionally, attackers were after passwords, and once they have a password, enter into the they can enter and do whatever they want to do. But that's not true. But that's not anymore. Attackers are after session cookies. Learn more. If you guys would like to learn more about how session cookies bypass MFA entirely, and why cyber criminals are after session cookies, I have written a full article on itblocks.ca. Labs are also available on f11.ca. Thank you guys.